And now let's talk about China. It is expanding its influence in West Asia and establishing a strong presence through economic investments and underhand tactics. The Chinese police stations have reached West Asia. That's right, Chinese police is operating in this region too. Now, we've reported extensively about them in the past. In the West, they've been used for spying operations. China has police stations all over the world. Countries like the US and the UK have moved to shut them down. Now, West Asia too has to deal with them. And where are these police stations? Reports say so far they've been found in two countries, Israel and the UAE. Israel has one police station, the UAE has two. There's limited information about these facilities, but we'll tell you what we know. In Israel, China has operated one station since 2020. We don't know the exact location, but we can tell you who's running it. The police of Nantong. Nantong is in southeastern China, but why does the police in Nantong need a police station in faraway Israel? Let me show you a report from last year, and I'm quoting from what the report says. The Nantong City Overseas Police and Overseas Chinese Linkage Service Center is an important link between Nantong and the international community and safeguards the rights and interests of Nantong overseas. So they call it an Overseas Chinese Linkage Service Center. Sounds very complicated, but let there be no doubt. This is a spying outpost. Reports say it is used to monitor Chinese nationals in Israel. In recent years, there's been a large influx. And why are the Chinese going to Israel? Well, broadly for two reasons. First is tourism. The second is to work in the construction business. Israel increasingly relies on Chinese workers. They're seen as dependable and skilled. Officially, China says the police stations there are to service these citizens, to help the immigrant population, but their activities do raise doubts. Consider what's happening in the UAE. Reports say it has two Chinese police stations, one in Dubai and another at an unknown location. Now, who operates them? The police of Nantong and Wenzhou. Again, two remote Chinese police departments. They use the facilities in the UAE like detention centers. And I'm not the one saying this. This has come from a former detainee, a woman named Wu Huan. She was living in Dubai with her fiancé. The fiancé was believed to be a dissident, a Chinese dissident. So the Chinese officials went after Wu. They abducted her from a hotel in Dubai. Reports say Wu was then taken to a villa. There she was kept with two Uyghurs, and she was held there for 8 days. She was questioned and threatened by Chinese officials. Later, they made her sign legal documents. They incriminated the fiancé. He was accused of harassing her. After she signed those papers, Wu was released. As of 2021, she was seeking asylum in the Netherlands. And I must also tell you this. Officials in both China and Dubai have rejected her claims. But in her testimony, Wu also names a Chinese man, Li Zuhang. He is the consul general of the Chinese consulate in Dubai. And Wu says this man interrogated her. He asked her if foreign groups gave her any money and if she was being paid to act against China. Imagine this. We're talking about a Chinese diplomat behaving like an interrogator, and that too in foreign territory. The West is cracking down on such Chinese police stations, but West Asia is denying their presence. And given China's growing clout in the region, it's hard to say if they will face action or will be given a free pass. Age and politics. It's a very weird relationship. If you're young, you're considered energetic and enthusiastic. But if you're too young, you're considered immature. Same on the other side. If you're old, you're considered experienced and seasoned. But if you're too old, you're seen as unfit. So where does US President Joe Biden slot in? He's 80 years old. He's also running for re-election. So he'll be 86 by the end of a possible second term. But why are we talking about this today? Because Biden's health is in the news for two reasons. One is a verbal mix-up. The president was speaking to reporters about the Ukraine war, but instead of Ukraine, he said Iraq. Listen to this.
To what extent has Vladimir Putin been weakened by recent events?
It's hard to tell, but he's clearly losing the war in Iraq. He's losing the war at home. And he has become a bit of a pariah around the world.
It happens to everyone, right? But there's more to the story. This exchange with reporters was on Wednesday, but Biden made the very same mistake on Tuesday as well. He was speaking to campaign donors in Maryland. Let me quote from what he said. My staff wasn't so sure that we'd been we'd be able to bring all of Europe together in the onslaught on Iraq and get NATO to be completely united. That's what he said. Again, he meant Ukraine, but he said Iraq. At the same event, Biden messed up again. He said his new best friend was the Prime Minister of the world's biggest country. He meant India, but he actually said China. So the verbal mix-ups are one problem. The second is Biden's sleep apnea. People noticed that the president had some marks on his face, as if he was wearing a mask. Later on, the White House clarified, Biden has been using a CPAP machine for the last few weeks. It helps with sleep apnea. Now, quick side note, sleep apnea is a condition where your airways get blocked while sleeping, so you can't breathe for a while. It can cause loud snoring, insomnia, and also headaches. The machine that he uses, the CPAP machine, can help reduce this. It feeds oxygenated air directly into your airways, hence the mask. Now, President Biden has had this condition for a while. It's been part of public record since 2008. And at first glance, it's not really problematic. Around 26% of all Americans between ages 30 and 70 have this condition. But Biden isn't just any US citizen. He's the president of the United States. He controls the nuclear football. So naturally, his sleep apnea will get more attention. Now, both these incidents have raised some questions about President Biden. Is he too old for re-election? Well, that's for his party and for American voters to decide. But I do have some numbers for you. The average life expectancy in the US is 77 years. That's how long a person lives on average in the US. Now, Biden is already 80. The average retirement age in the US is 61. I'm sure these decades of experience have helped Biden, but the optics are not good. At the G7 summit in May, Biden nearly took a tumble. He lost his footing, but thankfully he did not fall. But the next month he did. Biden was speaking at a US Air Force Academy in June. Afterwards, this happened. Like I said, it does not look good. Biden is the oldest president in American history. His challenges are unlike his predecessors. There's a war in Ukraine. There's a looming showdown with China. There's a major cost of living crisis and also growing white supremacy at home. Is Joe Biden up for those challenges? Well, he says he is. His team also releases regular medical records. None of these indicate major diseases, but age and politics is not just about physical fitness, it's also about the mental side of it. Like understanding what young people want, or keeping up with new attitudes, or being able to soak up more pressure. Things like that. Experience can make you accept those things. But only youth can help you celebrate them. It's something American Biden must think about. Simone Biles is back. She's a star gymnast, a 7-time Olympic medalist, and she plans to return to competition at the US Classic. It's a low-profile competition open to elite gymnasts. 2 years ago, she last competed at the Tokyo Games, but suddenly withdrew mid-event. This move sent ripples across the world, but Biles said she needed to protect her mind and body. You see, the world of sports can be uncompromising and very demanding. Athletes are rewarded for giving everything to the sport. Coaches demand it, so do the fans. But in recent years, we've seen a shift. High-profile athletes are now prioritizing their mental health over their career. Our next report tells you more.
This is Simone Biles, an icon in the world of gymnastics, a 7-time Olympic medalist who suddenly withdrew from the sport 2 years ago, shocking the world. The news spread like wildfire. After all, Biles was at the top of her career when she took this decision. But, undeterred, Biles stood by her decision, saying she needed to focus on her mental health, her body and mind, and for that she took time off. But now Biles is back, and again this is making headlines across the world. But her return isn't just a story of a comeback, it's a celebration of an athletic revolution. Because when the star athlete decided to step back, her decision was both applauded and condemned. Why the latter? Because such a decision is a rarity in the world of sports, which is relentless and uncompromising. It rewards perseverance, so athletes give and give and give, often at the cost of their own mental health. But in recent years, a shift seems to be occurring. Biles's withdrawal definitely counts as one of the most high-profile cases, but she's not the only one to speak up and step back. In 2021, tennis star Naomi Osaka spoke about her struggles with depression. Then she withdrew from the French Open. Michael Phelps is the most decorated Olympian in history. Recently, he too spoke about his struggles with substance abuse and depression. This year, Brooklyn Nets' Ben Simmons talked about his mental health problems. At the Winter Olympics in Beijing this February, many athletes from multiple sports spoke up. And what concerns do they share? Athletes of color have talked about how racism made their mental health worse. Players, young and old, also talk about the toll social media takes.
I would think as a player now, just to stay off social media as much as possible. Maybe if you need to for sponsors, put stuff out, but don't necessarily take stuff in where you read it. In my day, I was always told, don't pick up the newspaper, try not to watch what they say about you on television, because it does hurt. And particularly when you're young, you're trying to grow up. It's difficult enough without everybody having a voice and an opinion about your hairstyle, your dress, your attitude, your whatever it is.
But the fact that these conversations are occurring is a big deal for sports, which has long held the belief, no pain, no gain. Let us give you an example. At the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta, gymnast Kerri Strug famously broke her ankle on the vault. She told her coach about it, who said that she finished her routine despite the injury. Most of us would find it hard to walk with a broken ankle. Imagine doing air flips with it and nailing a landing. But back then, it was considered good coaching to keep pushing a player. And Strug followed this advice, helping the US team win gold. So it turned out all very well for the team. But what about Strug? She retired shortly after. At that time, this was acceptable. But now, things seem to be changing.
Yeah, I think I was of the generation of athletes who would suck it up and rub some dirt on it, was what my coach used to say. And so, I think that with some of us who are providers in the field, the reality is there's no science behind that. There is nothing that says, the reality is this is going to make you the best athlete. What we're actually finding, and there is science and literature behind, is the fact that to address an issue before it becomes a crisis, or to work with somebody around their mental health, can make them a stronger athlete. And they're overcoming adversity. And there are tips and tricks and strategies that are actually going to improve somebody's mental health and performance.
So maybe it isn't best to suck it up and rub some dirt on it. Because maybe avoiding mental health conversations may be the reason many bite the dust far too early in their careers. The ill effects of which haunt these athletes far too late in their lives. Because sometimes giving up and stepping back takes just as much courage as fighting on.
And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. To those who are celebrating Happy Eid, Muslims across the world are celebrating the festival of Eid al-Adha. Air tankers trying to extinguish wildfires that are burning the US state of Arizona. Thousands joined Madrid's Pride March, chanting slogans against the far-right Vox party ahead of the July elections. And finally, what makes the 29th of June significant? Let's go back to the year 1976, when Seychelles, a country in East Africa, achieved independence, ending 166 years of British rule. We're leaving you with these images. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
سيذكر من يخشى Hey,